All right. Our speaker today is somebody who we haven't seen in a while. We were talking about that before the start. It's been a year ago when he was hobbling around. But anyway, he's back now and whole and ready to share with us again. So here is Timber Hawkeye.
This is on? Yeah. Oh, hi. It's really good to be back. I don't know if you were here last time. It was July of last year. I had broken my foot, and I've been doing public speaking engagements for 11 years now, and I'm not a public speaker, so I'm extremely uncomfortable in front of people. And so my very first public speaking engagement was on the TED stage, which is arguably the most intimidating stage there can be. And my first book talk event was at Powell's Books in Portland, Oregon, which was so intimidating. And it was the first of 3 years of a talk every single day. And because I'd never done it before and I've never been to an author talk, I just showed up and let's see what it's like. And they had this big podium and rows of chairs all facing me, and I sweat so profusely, and I decided in that moment, right there and then, I'm never gonna stand up and speak at people. I want to sit in a circle with people and meet everyone at eye level. And when I was here last year and I had my broken foot, I was on this weird crutch thing, I don't know if you remember, and so I couldn't sit, so I stood, and I felt so uncomfortable standing in front and talking at people. Even though it's because I couldn't sit, it felt so wrong to not be at eye level with everyone. I was really down on myself because the tour exhausted me. I had COVID, I broke my foot, and around the same time I gave a talk at Unity in Anaheim. And with long COVID, I couldn't connect my thoughts, I couldn't connect my sentences. I wasn't making any sense. It just, whatever spark I typically have, because I always show up totally unprepared of what I'm going to say, was gone, and I felt like I bombed, and I said, okay, I'm going to take a year off of no speaking engagements. On the second Saturday of every month for the last 11 years, we meet in Ventura and we have a discussion circle, which is very different than presenting. I don't have to be, I'm just there to facilitate a discussion. So that was easy. And this couple came every month. They drove from Riverside to Ventura on the second Saturday of every month to come and hear me speak. And then they invited me to speak at a recovery seminar. And I chatted with them. I said, how did, you're coming all the way from Riverside. How did you ever hear of me? And they go, well, you gave a talk in Anaheim. The talk that I felt I bombed, they thought was so incredible that they're going to make the trip. And so I know now I am the worst person to gauge how well I do. And coming back, I was supposed to come back, I think, last month, and I had COVID again. And I was very symptomatic on the day that I was supposed to be here. So for your sake, I chose to sit this one out. And it's really, really, really good to be back. Unity as a concept, not just as an institution, has been so foundational for my own practice. The Buddha sat for 49 days straight and meditated, and what he came to realize is the sense of unity with all that is. Not just some, but even the tree he was sitting under, the roots, the air, everything. He saw the interconnectedness of it all. I want to talk about that sense of unity is what ignites our sense of compassion. And so when we lack compassion, I immediately go, okay, there's a disconnect. And so what's really interesting to me is I work a lot with the elderly, and some of them have dementia. And it would be completely absurd for me if someone says to me, hey, when am I going to see you next? And I say, I'm going to see you Thursday at noon. And they go, great. And then 10 minutes later, they go, what day is it? When am I going to see you again? And I very gently say, today is Sunday. I will see you Thursday at noon. And 20 minutes later, they go, when do I get to see you again? and I gently say Thursday at noon. But if a friend of mine who does not have dementia asks me a question for the second time, I'm so tempted to blow up at them. Why does my compassion depend on someone else? Why, I send out an email on the first of every month, and I sent out an email that, I work a lot in the prisons, and it's so incredible to see a sense of gratitude and vulnerability and transparency and total accountability for what they've done, and this commitment to grow and mature and learn from what they've, because the idea that the reason for my work there is to bring the correctional aspect back to correctional facilities, because they're a place for healing, not storage units. And I'm so accustomed to seeing that level of vulnerability when I speak with recovery groups and any format. It's just so beautiful to see vulnerability. And yet, I recently met someone on the outside who has no sense of remorse. And I was taken aback because I'm so accustomed to seeing so much remorse and compassion and kindness. And I was like, what do I do with this? And so I looked up, what does science say about people who don't have a sense of remorse? And science has defined them as sociopaths. And we, as society, because they are often led to cause harm to others, we demonize them. And I thought, they lack a sense of remorse. It would be just as unreasonable for me to be mad at them as it would be for me to be mad at someone blind because they lack a sense of sight. I could be so angry and go, can't you see that? It's like, no, they can't. And so to look at someone who lacks a sense of remorse and get mad at them, I pause and I go, what am I lacking? And in that moment, I'm lacking compassion. So what does it say about me? Does that make sense at all? Yeah. And I'm not saying we justify their behavior or we condone it or anything of the sort. It's not about them. We make it so quickly and easily about someone else. But what I love about Buddhism, and all the time I spent at 3 different monasteries, you spend hours every day sitting in front of a blank wall. I don't know if you know, in Zen Buddhism specifically, when you're in the meditation hall, you're not sitting facing out. You come in, you bow to each other, and then you turn, you bow to the wall, and then you sit in front of a blank wall for 4 to 8 hours at a time. That wall becomes a mirror, and it reflects back to you all the things you don't want to look at. And when you get upset, it's you you're upset with. It's no one else. No one else triggers you. When you're watching something on TV, when you're witnessing someone else's behavior, when you're seeing what's going on in the Middle East or in the Midwest, if it upsets you, it has more to do with you than what's going on. We can't sit here and simultaneously say everything is God's doing and then be upset when something happens. We can't. We have to trust. That's where I always reach for my faith and I go, where did I drop my faith? Because if I had it, I wouldn't question what's happening. I wouldn't demonize it. I wouldn't say this is good and this is bad and this is right and this is wrong. This Spirit of God that I do believe is inherent in everything is up to me to see, not up to someone else to show me. Does that make sense? Yeah. I can't delegate that out. I can't say, you show me the God in you and I will honor you. No, it's my job to see it in you, even when you don't see it yourself. So when something happens and it disturbs my inner peace, I go in, I don't know how to explain it. Like I look for accountability. I go, where did I go astray? And not blame someone else for pushing me off. If we are all interconnected and we can all honor the light in one another, because I don't believe that I am a source of light or that you are a source of light. I think of us like the moon. The moon is very bright, but it does not emit any light at all. It just reflects all the light that's already out in the world. So I think our job is not to try and be the light, it's just to mirror back the light in the world, the glimmers you were talking about. if you're a disco ball, all you're doing is reflecting the light in the world. And so that's kind of the mission is when we wake up. It's not about big sources of light. You don't have to be a sun. You don't have to blind people. I think it's just about when you see something positive, reflect it back. Not be the light, reflect the light. It's incredible. And I love that your wife is in Ghana now, because a couple in Cape Town just invited and is flying me down next month to officiate their wedding on a mountaintop in South Africa. And very strangely, and this is not a throuple situation, I'm going on their honeymoon with them to Namibia for a safari, where we're not taking a Jeep or anything, but we're camping next to a water hole and just waiting for the animals to come. So a lot of vaccinations and a lot of shots and a lot of pills and everything that involves just going out there. And it's my first time. I never thought I would go. But when the invitation comes, our job is to say yes. You started today by saying, can we be grateful for it all? Celebrate life in all of its moments. And I'll be really honest, it was really difficult for the last year to celebrate life when I broke my foot, and then I broke it again, and then I got COVID, and then I got COVID again, and then long COVID, and then arthritis in my spine flared up, and I lost use of my arms, and I felt so much despair. And I realized this is, in a sense, my own doing. It reminded me of the last of many suicide attempts. When I woke up, and I knew I shouldn't have woken up medically, and yet I did, I realized it's not up to me. I'm not the decision maker here. It's up for me to find those glimmers, to find the light, and pull myself out of the darkness. Because I'll be really honest, way harder than the broken foot, or the arthritis, or the pain, or the nerve damage was the despair. Climbing out of that despair, finding light from that pit of darkness was only possible thanks to the sense of unity. When I pulled back and go, the opposite of it is the woe is me. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I can so easily hyper-focus on the triggers, as you said, or the bad news, but that's a judgment. This is good, this is bad. If only everyone thought like I did, would be okay. I'm the problem in that line of thinking. I need to allow space. I need to have as much patience with everyone, not just the ones who have dementia, not just the ones who are behind bars, not just because we're all suffering from something. Truly, we're all, and we may not be diagnosed, or we may not wear our diagnosis like a badge. But if someone tells you that what you're doing is hurtful, our response can't be, well, that's your problem. It's up to me to go, how can I not, I think I may have said this before, my biggest challenge with Buddhism was the concept of do no harm. It felt debilitating. There's no way I can do no harm. My mere existence causes harm. I'm part of the problem. But when I changed it to do less harm, it immediately sparked a fire under me that every decision I make, every thought I have, every meal I have, everywhere I go, everything I think, say, or do, I can try to think, how can I minimize the harm that I'm causing? Not eliminate it. I'm gonna cause harm, but how can I minimize it? And I think that, to me, if God needs help, that to me is a way of helping. Like, let me take some of the burden off of you, and at least tread lightly, so to speak. Leave no trace. That, what would in nature is to take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints. It's true in the national park, and it's true in our daily lives. instead of walking into a room and trying to impress everyone there, I walk into a room with the intention of finding something impressive about everyone I meet. But that could be perhaps easy here today, and a little more challenging walking into a maximum security prison. But that's our calling. When you watch something on TV, we are culturally kind of encouraged to pick sides. And I think you know what I'm talking about. And my invitation is for us to choose the side of peace and love. And unconditional love. To have just as much patience with someone who says something that we think is hurtful or divisive as we would with someone who has a mental illness or is blind or has dementia. Because we are all struggling with something. And I would know, there's no way I would get upset with someone who can't hear me because they're deaf than I would be with someone who's causing harm to someone else because they have no idea that what they're doing is harmful. Because what does that say about me if my compassion has contingencies? Does that make sense? I know it's a tall order. I'm not suggesting that this is easy, but I am suggesting it's easier than spending the rest of our lives judging everyone we see or hear. That's the invitation, is to just, it's, you know, at the core of all religious things is there's always judgment day is near, and I'm like, non-judgment day is upon us, but your participation is required. So catch yourself when you are tempted to judge and ask yourself, would I be this harsh, this brutal, this rigid with someone if they only had a week to live? Because some of my work with people in hospice, for example, I'm going to end it with that because I can go on all day, but sometimes you get the sweet little old lady who is just so gentle and happy to see you and just wants to play cards or, you know, watch Wheel of Fortune for the 100th time. But sometimes you get the very bitter, the angry, the cruel, the hostile, the one who just tells you to get out of the room, complains about the food, complains about everything. But they have like a week left to live. So you don't let that get you. You go, that's all right, right? Like you, right? I think you know the sense of gentleness you would have with you, even if someone's being so ugly towards you, who's spitting at you, whatever, and you're just, can we have that with everyone because it may be their last week alive? Like, I think we can if we just leave ego aside. Because before I walk into the prisons, before I walk into hospitals, before I walk into here, before I walk into recovery groups, I take off my shoes and I leave my ego. Like that, because I can't come in and think of myself as somehow superior to anyone else. I have to be at eye level with everyone and go, I am in the trenches with you. It is difficult, it is hard when there's pain, when there's suffering, when there's anguish, it's all around us. And if that's all we look for, that's all we'll see. But if we look for the glimmers, thank you for that. We will see them everywhere. So I say thank you for the darkness, because without it, we wouldn't be able to see the stars. Thank you guys for attempting to have compassion when it is the most difficult to do.